Before you decide who the villain is, listen carefully, because this story might change how you see family forever. If you enjoy real-life stories about hard choices and broken trust, please subscribe and write in the comments which city you're listening from. Now, let me take you back to the small apartment where everything began. I lived with my older sister in a rented two-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city. It wasn't fancy, but it was affordable, and for me, it was temporary. I had a clear goal: save enough money to buy my own place and finally live independently. Every month, I set aside part of my paycheck. I didn't trust banks much back then, so I kept the cash in a small wooden box hidden in my bedroom closet. That box represented years of discipline, sacrifice, and quiet hope. My sister was different. She worked nights at a loud, flashy club downtown. She loved excitement, risk, and fast money. When she came home near sunrise, smelling of perfume and cigarette smoke, she often talked about luck, who won, who lost, and how one good night could change everything. I tried not to judge her, but I worried. Gambling wasn't just entertainment for her, it was a habit she couldn't control. Our parents had helped both of us years earlier, giving us a modest amount to get started in adult life. I treated that money like a seed, something to protect and grow. My sister treated it like a ticket to a bigger win. Still, she was my sister. We shared meals, holidays, and childhood memories. I believed blood meant boundaries would never be crossed. One quiet Sunday afternoon, I opened my wooden box to add another envelope of cash. My hands froze. The box was almost empty. At first, I thought I was mistaken. I counted again, my heart pounding harder with every second. The money was gone, almost all of it. Panic turned into disbelief, then fear. I checked the apartment door, the windows, even my closet shelves. Nothing else was missing. Deep down, I already knew the truth, but I wasn't ready to say it out loud. That evening, when my sister came home, I confronted her. She didn't deny it. She looked tired, defensive, and strangely calm. She said she was my sister and had every right to that money. Part of it came from our parents, she reminded me. She said she only took what was hers and that she would pay it back after her next big win. I felt betrayed in a way I had never experienced before. That night, the apartment felt smaller than ever, and I realized this wasn't just about money, it was about trust, and it was already broken. After that night, silence filled the apartment like thick fog. We avoided each other, moving around the same space like strangers. I replayed her words over and over in my head, trying to understand how someone I loved could justify taking my future away. Every dollar in that box had a purpose. Without it, my plans collapsed overnight. I started sleeping poorly, waking up with the same question: how did it come to this? My sister acted as if nothing had changed. She went to work, came home late, and talked about luck, as if luck could erase betrayal. One morning, I asked her again when she would return the money. She snapped, saying pressure made things worse and that I should be patient. Days later, I noticed unopened bills on the kitchen table and late notices slipped under the door. I realized she wasn't just gambling for excitement anymore, she was chasing losses. The apartment, once a stepping stone, was turning into a trap. I considered moving out immediately, but without my savings, I had nowhere to go. I called our parents. That was one of the hardest conversations of my life. I didn't want to expose my sister, but I needed advice. They were shocked, especially when they learned the money was gone. They asked to speak with her. She refused, saying everyone was against her and that no one understood how close she was to winning it all back. Tension grew heavier each day. One evening, I came home to find her sitting on the floor, surrounded by betting slips and notes. Her hands were shaking. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. She admitted she had lost everything, not just my savings, but her own income as well. The casino had become her escape and her prison at the same time. I felt anger, yes, but also sadness. This wasn't just irresponsibility, it was addiction. Still, knowing that didn't bring my money back or fix the damage. I told her I couldn't live like this anymore. I needed safety, honesty, and a future that didn't depend on chance. She promised again that things would change. I wanted to believe her, but promises had become meaningless. That night, I packed a small bag and went to stay with a friend. Leaving the apartment felt like failure, but staying felt like drowning. From that distance, I finally saw the truth clearly. My sister wasn't choosing gambling over me on purpose. She was sick, and sickness, when ignored, only grows stronger. I knew then that something drastic had to happen, something neither of us wanted, but both of us needed. Living away from the apartment gave me clarity, but it didn't bring peace. I worried constantly about my sister. She stopped answering calls, and when she did text, her messages were short and scattered. Our parents tried to reach her too, with little success. The situation was slipping out of everyone's control. One night, I received a call from an unknown number. It was my sister. Her voice sounded weak, almost unrecognizable. She said she needed help and didn't know who else to call. I went to see her immediately. When I arrived, I barely recognized the person opening the door. She looked exhausted, defeated, and scared. The apartment was a mess. Empty cups, scattered papers, and the same wooden box I once trusted lay open on the table, mocking us both. She finally admitted everything, how she kept gambling to fix one mistake with another, how the pressure and guilt pushed her deeper, and how she felt trapped by her own choices. For the first time, she apologized without excuses, not for taking the money alone, but for hurting me. I told her the truth as well, that I loved her, but I couldn't save her by pretending nothing was wrong. Love without boundaries had brought us here. Together, we called our parents. This time, she didn't hang up. There were tears, anger, and long pauses filled with regret. Our parents suggested professional help, something we had all avoided saying out loud. My sister resisted at first, afraid of labels and judgment, but fear had already taken everything else from her. The next day, we met with a counselor. Hearing a professional describe her behavior as an addiction was painful, but also relieving. It meant there was a path forward, even if it was long and difficult. The counselor explained that treatment wasn't punishment, it was protection. Making the decision to admit her to a hospital program was heartbreaking. She cried, and so did I. But beneath the fear, there was something new: honesty. For once, there were no promises about big wins or quick fixes, only a commitment to get better, one day at a time. As I left the hospital that evening, I felt both empty and hopeful. I didn't know if I would ever recover my savings or buy that apartment I dreamed of, but I knew something more important had happened. We had stopped pretending, and sometimes that is the first real victory. The weeks after my sister entered treatment were quiet in a way I wasn't used to. No late-night arguments, no anxious waiting, no constant fear of what might disappear next. The silence gave me space to think, not just about her, but about myself. I started rebuilding my savings slowly. It wasn't easy, and it felt unfair to start over, but I reminded myself that money could be earned again. Trust and health were harder to restore. I visited my sister regularly at the hospital. Each visit showed small changes. She looked calmer, more present, and for the first time in years, truly accountable. She talked about triggers, denial, and how easily hope can turn into self-destruction. Listening to her, I realized how close I had come to losing her completely. Addiction didn't announce itself loudly, it whispered, promising relief while stealing everything else. Our parents attended family sessions too. There were hard conversations about boundaries, responsibility, and support without enabling. We learned that helping didn't mean rescuing, it meant standing firm, even when it hurt. One afternoon, my sister handed me a letter she had written as part of her therapy. In it, she didn't ask for forgiveness or money. She thanked me for stopping her when she couldn't stop herself. That letter meant more to me than any repayment ever could. I began to see my original goal differently. Buying an apartment was still important, but it was no longer the only measure of success. Stability, honesty, and self-respect mattered more. Losing my savings had forced me to grow in ways I never expected. Slowly, trust started to rebuild. Not perfectly, not quickly, but sincerely. We spoke openly, without excuses or secrets. The past couldn't be erased, but it could be understood. Months later, my sister completed her hospital program. She wasn't fixed, and she never claimed to be. Recovery, we learned, wasn't a finish line. It was a daily choice. She continued therapy and found a new job far from the nightlife that once controlled her. We no longer lived together, and that distance was healthy. Our relationship became more honest, grounded in reality instead of obligation. She started repaying small amounts of money when she could, but more importantly, she repaid trust through consistent actions. As for me, I kept saving. Slowly, patiently, without hiding cash in boxes anymore. I learned to protect not just my money, but my boundaries. One day, I will buy that apartment, but even if it takes longer, I know I didn't lose everything. This story didn't end with a miracle win or instant forgiveness. It ended with treatment, truth, and a second chance at life. And sometimes that is the most realistic happy ending of all.